Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be answering some questions that you guys have put in the comments on YouTube. Just a heads up, I can't answer every question, and a lot of questions are similar to each other, so if I don't get around to your question specifically, it might be in another video at some point, or it might be something I just can't answer outright. There'll be some answers which might be a bit thin on info, purely because, I don't want to overshare. Plus, there's some things I just cannot share, right? So just want to manage expectations about that. And yeah, well, I'll just sit, I'll paint. So I'm going to prep my area now. Let's get this wet palette drenched. I love these little squeegee bottles, so good. I'm going to pick myself some paints and then we'll start answering some questions. Oh, and just before I get too deep, I want to thank everybody again. I know I keep thanking people at the beginning of videos. That's just my nature. 2,000 subscribers. We've went over the 2,000 mark, which is amazing. I have a goal for the year of 2,500 subscribers. So, we're edging closer to that very quickly, by this channel's standards. So thank you very much in advance. If you do like this video, subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. So I'm going to get set up and then we'll start with the questions. So first question, nice and easy one just to get us started, is from James Thompson, and he says, Lance, were you able to get the Space Wars box set for yourself? No, unfortunately, James. I missed that bandwagon. Basically, I became a GW stockist like a week after all that stuff pretty much sold out. I know there's some stockists somewhere that still have stock at full retail price. So if I ever do want it, or if I'm dying for it right now, I could go and get that. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. I've got a bit too much on at the moment. I've still got the Skaven Tide box to fully assemble, some of the old 9th edition command set to still assemble. And I've got loads of Space Marines and stuff to paint, as well as my own miniatures that are work in progress. So, building some Space Wolves now, they'd probably be grey or primed for a very long time, right? And that, that box, such a nice box, sat there, just going to waste. I'd probably end up in a month's time thinking, oh, I'll just put it into stock and let somebody actually enjoy it. Does that make sense? They're great models, great sculpts. It's just, something I just don't think I can get round to anytime soon. So that's why I don't have it. Cheers for the question, James. Next quick question is from Tim McFarren. Is it cold there? It's 86 here in lovely Michigan. No, it's not very cold at the moment in Warrington. We're actually going through a bit of a dry spell this week. I don't know whether or not this is just a reference to me wearing hats all the time, because I've had a few people bring it up, both in person and online. I just like wearing hats. So, no, weather here's all right for the time being. It's not cold at all, and I like wearing hats. If that's what, if that's what that question was in reference to. Cheers for the question, Tim. Next question is from CryptoSense. How much stock can you carry in a shop that size? Well, Crypto, I don't know the true answer to that because I've not filled it yet. I know on my system at the moment there's over 4,000 SKUs, so individual items, but not all of them are in stock. But, the Army Painter paint rack, for example, is 1,000 items. Not SKUs, but individual items. Their hobby rack, is a couple of hundred items easy. I've got well over 1,000 miniatures in here, with, well over 2,000 paints. I'm hoping that's giving you an idea of how quickly stuff like this, because of how small some of the items are, can grow. So monetary wise, my inventory kicks out how much at retail and at cost I have in inventory. That's something I'm not going to divulge, unfortunately. But you can get an idea. It's only 215 square feet, so it's very, very small, but it's packed. And there's still room to grow. I'm going to get probably deeper shelves for the walls at some point. We've got more stock coming to fill the GW units. I would imagine by, you know, the end of 12, 18 months, which I've mentioned before, that's the time I want to reach stock saturation. By that time, I'd probably say it's probably going to hold triple the value of what it currently has inside it. I hope that helps answer the question somewhat. Just for the question. Next question comes from Stop Trekker 01. How about a small gaming table for demos or combat patrols, maybe getting some card games? So, I guess that's more of a suggestion than a question. However, there was a lot of questions from a few people, I won't read all your names out, that are on that type of wavelength. You know, why not a gaming table? Or why aren't you doing like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon cards? So I'll try and address all of that here encompassing. So, first of all, gaming table. When we were originally laying out the store, we did put a 6x4 table in, and it was just too big. Too big to the point it wasn't worth sacrificing that space over stock. So think about it this way, or this was the order of operations my head went through. We have a gaming table, we sacrifice 6x4 or whatever size it would have been, you know, 3x3, 3x4, you know, whatever. What could be there instead? Because that gaming table in itself doesn't sell you anything. It demos stuff, yep, it can help answer questions with sales and get people hyped up and all that jazz, good stuff. But usually in this hobby, the stock does that by itself, if that makes sense. And that space is just worth more to put stock on. So think about it this way. If you've got a play table in your store and people are coming in and playing, you know, they're bringing their own goods, you know, you might charge them a fee, £2.50 for a few hours, whatever. So it makes you small amounts of money. But a lot of those people usually already have the stuff, right? So they're coming there to play. You know, if I sold drinks and coffee and stuff like that, that might increase the value of that proposition, but I don't, because I don't have the space for that, right? So people would come in, they'd play, they'd have good fun playing and stuff like that. Maybe, you know, throw me the money for for renting that space out to play, but then go, or you know, they've already got their stuff. For lack of a better phrase, they've already got their stuff. It's not to say that they won't come in for more stuff in the future. It's just now I can stock less and I have less stuff on show because you know, I've got a gaming table there. So that's the gaming table thing. Now, don't get me wrong. If the next 12 months goes really well and I can upgrade to a space that's double or triple the size, I want a play table. I do want one. It's just there's pros and cons to having one, and just in this instance with the store the size, having the place stocked just had more pros. There's also, and this feeds into the other part of that question, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and all that type of stuff. So I did market research before actually opening the store, so don't just think I went into this blind. And there's 2 stores in the local area that do Magic the Gathering, Pokemon cards, and one of them is like 100 meters away. It's a geek retreat. They sell all that, and they have all those play tables. So it's like if somebody wants to come and play in Warrington during the day and stuff, geek retreat is just over the road, and they have, you know, space to sit. They have food and all that type of stuff, and they sell the cards and all that jazz. So it's not to say that cards wouldn't make profit, or a table wouldn't necessarily make profit. Again, it's just over the stock that I want to stock, would it be better? Now, the card world itself as well is just notoriously difficult to get into at the moment. Stock is all over the place. A lot of distributors will not even consider you as a you know, a card stockist unless you're spending a lot of money with them or you're very well established. Now, that's not to say I can't get them. I probably could. But again, you know, I want to carve out a little niche for myself with miniatures and paints. Let them do the card things for now. Again, I do say this very loosely because I might in future if a deal comes across my table, or it opens up a little bit so that smaller places can actually get into that type of stuff, then I might. And if I get a bigger space, I'm going to need to fill it with stock, so cards might become an option. Just in this initial stage, I think cards might just be a little bit too much. Plus, my head at the moment is absolutely peppered with all the stuff we're currently stocking because I'm having to learn about them. Throwing cards into the mix, a very dense market with loads of different games. You've got Riftbound coming out in, I think it's September. You've got MTG, they've just released a new Final Fantasy stuff. You've got Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! The list is endless. There's like HoloLive card games, there's everything. Obviously, there's certain ranges you'd want to stock, but it's just a bit too dense, I think, for this, and maybe a bit too, pardon me, maybe a bit too much for this store at this moment in time. That's my thoughts. Cheers for the question. Again, a lot of people ask that question. Hopefully that helps answer that. So the next question is from Sanguinius and Tar. And it is, will you allow customers to purchase kits from you that they may not have in stock, aka you order it in and dispatch it via post? So I'm assuming you're talking about Games Workshop stock. So if you are, as part of their stockist program, we can order stock from them. Now, as far as I'm aware, it's for people to come in store and order stock from, because if everybody online would just come to you and order it from you, it might be a bit too much to handle, if that makes sense. So people can come into store and they can place an order. We order from GW once a week. So if you come in on a Tuesday, you want something, it's on a Monday my orders take place. And there's no guarantee they're going to have it in stock. So yes, people can come in. I can put an item onto the system. We can place an order. I can take payment for it now, but there's no guarantee they're going to have it next Monday. So I will place that order straight away and it goes into the system, but on Monday I'll get told whether or not that item is in stock or not. So for example, we've had some people come in wanting the Emperor's Children Combat Patrol. At the moment, I just can't get hold of it. It will come back in stock. So that's an item I don't mind ordering actually in advance, because I know when it comes in stock, it will sell. If your item is like super obscure and you want that, and then you're putting money on, let's say for example, you want something that's really obscure and it's a few £100, a couple of £100, whatever. And then you come in and then you purchase it. And I go, yes, okay, I will send an order now to GW. And I get the stock, but then you cancel. And I'm lumped with some obscure £200 item. So I've got to be careful. Small independent businesses would have to be careful ordering really obscure stuff, right? Because there's a chance it might not sell. And, for us to sit on £200, £300, £400 worth of stock is quite meaningful for us, if that makes sense. So it's not insignificant, right? So it's a yes and no thing. Can you do it online? No, not really. Not yet anyway. If you're a regular and I know your face and you've bought a lot of stuff from us and you're not a serial canceller or something like that, then potentially. It's one of those, just reach out, ask the question, and we might be able to do it. We'll see. Thanks for the question. Next one from Basic Miniature Painting. Will you be stocking more Combat Patrol box sets? Easy yes, of course I will. Again, it's just whether or not GW have them in stock. So for example, this week my order had, I think, 6 different Combat Patrol box sets on it. Only one was in stock. So take for that what you will. But yeah, absolutely. Every single week, as I'm increasing my stock until I get to saturation, I'm wanting the more popular, easy, and not necessarily easy sells, but popular items in the range to get buffed up, right? And those large box bits of stock are definitely on the cards. So every week, the hope is I'll be putting some Combat Patrols on the order, and then it's luck as to whether or not they actually are in stock to ship to me. So yeah, thanks for the question. I will be getting more combat patrol boxes. So next question from Matthew Gillard. When you are in the shop for many hours, like 10 hours straight, how do you handle eating and toilet breaks, etc., with you being a one-man crew? So there's some days I'll have like a friend here or my girlfriend with me, so that's easy, right? She goes out, gets food, brings it to me, and she minds the shop, or they mind the shop whilst I go to the loo. When I'm by myself, which is usually at least 4 days a week, probably, I literally lock the store up and go to the toilet. The complex has a staff toilet in it, next to the public toilets upstairs. So I lock the store up. There's a sign on the door that will say back in 5 minutes. When that's showing, I'm on the loo, pretty much. And you know, there's sometimes if security has come in for a chat, I'll ask him to just mind the shop for 5 minutes whilst I just run and go to the toilet. As for food, 99% of the time I just eat in the store. I just bring my lunch with me or whatever I decide to eat. Like yesterday, I actually didn't eat anything. Today, I've brought some biscuits with me. When I'm actually here doing work, I don't get massively hungry. So, you know, I have plenty of water that I bring with me. So I've got loads to drink. But yeah, in terms of food, don't really eat much. Every now and again, I'll bring in some sandwiches or something like that. But yeah, I eat in store and go to the loo just by locking the door. Okay, next question is from Joey C777. How did you get started? Bank loan, savings, robbed a bank. So for me, none of those. Unfortunately, my savings were destroyed during COVID. Having come out of work last year, I didn't want to risk a bank loan. And no, I didn't rob a bank. What I did was I created a business plan. This might answer quite a few questions. So if I don't read your question out regarding the business, this is where you might find it. I created a business plan which went from 12, 24 to 36 months, so the first 3 years. And one of the reasons I started that was to aim to get a government-backed business loan. I decided against it in the end, and thought I could just about make it work myself rather than taking on X amount of debt, right? So what I decided to do is I became VAT registered in the UK, and what that allows you is, for example, let's say for example I buy £10 worth of stock, I can claim, as long as the company's VAT registered and all that good stuff, I can claim the 20% VAT back on that stock. Does that make sense? So out of that for every £10 I spend for 20% VAT items, I get £2 back. Yep. Now, if I was to sell that item at a, double it, £20 is the sale price, the recommended retail price for it. When I sell that item, I owe the government 20% of that item, i.e. £4 back. And then the profits are mine to then get taxed and all that other government-based garbage. I became VAT registered, and what that allows you to do in the UK is you can backdate a claim for 4 years. So it's 4 years on products that you still have in use related to the business, and it's 6 months on services. So for example, I have subscriptions to the software that I use to create my miniatures. I could claim the VAT back on that subscription for 6 months, for the 6 months prior to being registered. Now we have, now think about it this way, I have iPad, PC, monitors, all these paints, all the models I've purchased for it, which are all being utilised or have been part of the business in some way, shape or form. The wet palette I used, the light, all that stuff, and my 3D printers, all that, I could claim the VAT back as long as I still have it and it's still in use and it was within the last 4 years. So that gave me, a couple of £1,000 just outright type of thing. Didn't need to borrow or anything like that. And that's to get started. And then when you order stock, so all SGW stock, you know, the stuff that we've got coming from Warlord Games, the stuff from Army Painter, from all the distributors, they will be VAT registered because they turn over £80,000 plus a year. I think it's 85 now. It might change, but they turn over that, so they're VAT registered, so you can claim the VAT back off that. So what that does is, as you're starting up, it does hit you initially. Like you will need to pay the full price, and in the UK, you would need to do VAT returns every 3 months. Or you can do it every year if you opt into that, but I do it every 3 months. So what happens is I pay outright for it, and then 3 months later, at the very start anyway, I'm getting VAT refunds because the store wasn't open, right? I was getting stuff for online, to build a little bit of an online presence. So I was getting stock in, and I was able to claim the VAT back, so that by the time I come to open up the store, I'd got a chunk of change from my first initial 4-year back date of VAT, plus my first VAT return. Now, for the part of my business plan, I assumed I would not really make much of a profit for the first year. Now we're trending a lot better than I originally projected, which is great. So I'll probably be paying the government VAT back on either my next return or the return after. Depends how much stock I buy in before then. But that's one way I got help, if that makes sense, or some capital to do it outright. The business itself, like, I do earn money doing commissions and from, you know, the friendly people at Patreon and from my mini factory and all that good stuff. So my month-to-month bills just about get paid, and then this store should hopefully be able to look after itself. But yeah, that's how I initially got capital to start. Became VAT registered, used the initial VAT outlay to help keep to help stock and get into the shop, and then from there on in, I start to make money, and then I start to pay the government their VAT back and do it that way, if that makes sense. All this information is on the government website. If you type in VAT there, go for it. If you earn £80,000 or more, you have to be VAT registered. Might have gone up to 85 or 90,000, I don't remember. But you can opt in. But the thing is when you opt in, you can't just say, oh, I'm constantly going to be getting VAT refunds from the government. No, you need to, there's very few businesses that do that. Like books, book businesses or book sale businesses might always get VAT refunds from the government, purely because books and that type of stuff are not, they're not VAT eligible items, so you don't sell them with VAT or buy them with VAT on it. But because there's running costs, you might end up getting VAT returns every year or every quarter. For businesses like this, though, you'll turn a profit. You can't just be claiming VAT back from the government perpetually. So just be aware of that. Don't do that, because it might end up biting you in the behind. In this instance, I said it's probably going to take me about a year, but by the looks of it, if everything goes according to the last 3 weeks of analytics I have, we'll be in VAT owed to the government, either next return or the return after. So thanks for the question. Hope that answered it. Next question is from Graham's Hobby Corner. Hi Graham. He asks, I'd love to know how much it costs to get going with a physical location, especially stocking the shop so you could get going. Just in general terms, not to give trade secrets away and stuff like that. So this is one of the reasons why I got this place, and this might answer some other questions as well. The rent here is fairly cheap, right? And the cost to get in here was just the legal fee and the first month's rent. So you're probably looking around about £1,600, I think it was. So it wasn't much for all intents and purposes. And that's tying into a 3-year lease, but I have a get out clause at 12, 24 and 36 months. So that's cool. So getting into a physical location, there's not necessarily a lot of money that needs to change hands. You just have to wait a bit. Now, some of these units and fixtures I brought from home, right? So like Kallaxes from IKEA, you know how much they are. And Billy bookcases and stuff like that, quite cheap. I would say go out your way and look for bargains. I needed a point of sale terminal, so you know, a cash drawer. I needed an iPad for it. I needed what else did I need? You know, I wanted a till receipt printer, a card reader, and all that type of stuff. The supplier of our point of sale software and system wanted somewhere in the region of about £1,000 for all that. I got all mine for less than 300 quid, and I was literally just going on places like eBay and, you know, getting an iPad from Cash Generator. It doesn't need to be something good, it just needs to fit and work, right? So yeah, I managed to get all that type of stuff second hand. The acrylic shelves, again, got second hand. The D12 cabinets, a friend donated them to me years ago because he was getting rid of them, so I've just brought them to the store. Some display units, so like obviously the Army Painter unit and the GW units. When you buy into that stock, if you spend a certain amount of money or you go for a certain range, they give you those units for free. So, you know, the stock itself, again, I don't want to divulge how much I'm spending on all this stuff. So some distributors and stockists allow you to do stuff where it's like, you know, you buy an item and then you get 30 days to pay it off, or you buy an item and then you get like end of the month plus 30 days to pay it off. And some of them, when you buy into certain ranges, you get large discounts. And you know, there's other benefits that come with that. Some items they give for free, they give you some point of sale support and all that jazz, right? So it's very hard to actually put a figure on anyway, if I'm brutally honest. But I would say, and another thing that helps me out actually is I make my own stock. So like, you know, there's not an insignificant amount of space there dedicated to some of my miniatures and some over there as well. I built the opening inventory up over 3 months, and I still didn't think I had enough personally. And that was a mixture of my stuff and stuff that I bought from distributors that allowed online only companies to buy stock. So I was storing it at home and selling it momentarily on my website, which I started in February, and my eBay, which I started in, I want to say January, February. So it was a couple of months of sales, starting to get into the system, starting to get SEO and stuff like that, before I then opened the store. I would say to get into a store of this size with an amount of stock to open, you'd probably want somewhere in the region of about £10,000. I'd probably that's the figure I'd probably put on it. That's not far off the figure of the loan I was contemplating getting from the government, the business back loan, a little bit more than I was going to get. But yeah, I decided against that, and I went with the VAT route and stuff like that based on you know my previous answer, previous questions answered. So I would say about £10,000 will get you into a store like this. Now, if you're getting anywhere bigger, then it ramps up quite quickly. If you were to double the space, I would probably say like quadruple the amount of stock or money put into stock. Do you know what I mean? To fill that space out, because 215 square feet as opposed to 400 or 500 square feet, there's actually a massive difference. Do you know what I mean? So I would say, yeah, around about £10,000 gets you into a small place like this, which for most people is not a lot, right? But it's a bit of a gamble. Plus, I'm not hiring anyone or anything like that. I'm doing it all myself. My girlfriend does help occasionally with deliveries and stuff, but it's pretty much me. So I hope that answered that question. It was, I'm sure I could ramble for days about stuff like this, and I could give you exact figures. Again, I just don't really want to do that. But I hope that helps in some way, shape, or form. Great, thanks for the question. So I think this will be the last question I answer in this round, and it comes from Derbyshire Goon. Good name. I'd love to know what it takes to open a shop, not necessarily wargaming, just in general. So I can obviously only speak for this store, right? Not necessarily the businesses, but so research is probably the biggest thing. There's no point in opening a shop, you know, which let's say for example I wanted to open in Birmingham, the centre of Birmingham, right? Great, it's mega money and it's right next to one of the biggest gaming hobby gaming chains in the UK. So would people really come to me? Do you get what I mean? So I wanted to. I thought, and I don't know whether or not it's paying off yet. I thought Warrington, not too far. I live just out on the very, very outskirts of Warrington. I thought, oh, there's a bit of a need for a gaming area in Warrington. You have the Warhammer store in Warrington, which is a great little store. That's GW stock only, and it's at their full retail price. And then the only other one really is the Geek Retreat in there, but they don't sell miniatures or anything like that, or paints. There's no Games Workshop alternative. Outside, well, there's Hobbycraft as well, but they sell GW stock. They just sell one small range and they sell it at full retail again. There has been hobby stores in Warrington in the past. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us. So I thought, okay, maybe I can do what I'm doing at home, which is sculpt or paint miniatures, do it in a store instead. So like I'm going to an office job, but then have a space that allows people to come in, pick up paints, pick up stock, maybe pick up some of my stock, you know, sit down, paint, you know, I can teach them and stuff like that. That was my thought. So I thought I identified a space in Warrington for that. Then you need to choose a space wisely and think about all the different factors that go into that. So like your opening times. Well, I'm a one-man band. You know, how many hours really can I work a week? You know, I'm getting on a bit now. How many hours really can I work a week? You know, is the place secure? How much will it cost on contents insurance? Is the rent good? Is visibility good? So on and so forth. So my thinking was, in this instance, was like hobby stores are typically destination stores. They don't really need to be the front thing on the high street. You can get a lot of footfall from that, but you need to then up your security and all this type of stuff. Plus it costs a hell of a lot more. So I was like, let's play it safe. Let's keep things as conservative and as cheap as possible for all intents and purposes, and see how it goes from there and then expand. I didn't want to just go balls to the wall and throw everything out there, because I didn't want it to fail very quickly. So just think about stuff like that. So do your research. How much does stuff cost? What's popular? You know, what are the trade terms with certain companies? And it's not just getting the stock. It's, you know, who are your suppliers? Who's your point of sale system, like your terminal? How are you taking payments? You know, your security. How are you going to pay rent for the place every month? There's electric, gas maybe if you've got an older place and stuff. You know, is it how you gonna, you know, light it? There's loads of stuff to think about. So what I did is I sat down, I made a business plan. Again, I put it at 12, 24, 36 months, and I placed milestones in it, like where do I want to be in 12 months? Where do I want to be in 24 and 36? What should I do in 12, 24 and 36? How much do I expect to make in the first year, month by month? What type of things I did want to stock and how much they sell for, and how many I expected to sell. Who's your local competition? Why are they good? Why are they bad? You know, why would somebody go to one of your competitors over you, and why would somebody come to you over your competitors? So yeah, that's why I picked the centre of Warrington, right close to the bus and train station. This place was cheap rent. It wasn't hidden on the top floor. I wanted at least a ground floor unit. I wanted good security, which, you know, it has you know, manned security, and you know, it's off the main street, that type of stuff. And you know, I'm augmenting it with a website, stuff like these videos, right? My 3D printing stuff. So yeah, just I'm hoping this answers the question. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but there was like loads of different things, prongs and arms of attack, and just loads of things to think about. I started the website and selling on eBay first to try and get the brand out there, try and get a few customers. You know, and that's another thing. Like, what type of customer service are you going to offer? What's your gimmick? What's your hook? Do you have a loyalty system, or are you doing what I do, where you know, roll the dice, you get a free miniature. You know, what's your social media or advertising strategy? You know, how are you going to attack that? Is there any local gaming clubs? If they are, do they need feeding in some way? Like, you know, a lot of people were telling me prior to opening Necromunda's crap, don't bother with it. But the local gaming club, or one of the local gaming clubs, supposedly has a very big Necromunda party. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I'm starting to stop Necromunda. So yeah, it's just a lot of research, and be realistic and be conservative. I would say it's better to be conservative and realistic and then lose a little, rather than going, you know, all out and then losing a lot when it doesn't work, or if it doesn't work. And if you plan, keep it simple and just plan for every eventuality, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, if all things go well and you played your cards right, not trading cards. No, but if you planned it well, then hopefully you'll start to grow. And that's my hope. You know, in 12, 24 and 36 months, there'll be some new thing that I'll want to either move into, whether that be a new place or new ranges, and expand that way. So, yeah, there's a lot to think about. That what it takes to get and open a store is research, and for every different business model, it'll be different. And that's not just like, oh, different industries. Like, yes, we're a hobby store. We're going to plan a business a lot different than a small car dealership or a mechanic, right? Of course. But even hobby shop to hobby shop, like my business model is a lot different than GW's business model. My business model will be a lot different than Geek Retreat's business model, and it'll be a lot different than Element Games or I don't know, Whaling Games. You know, it'll be a lot different from them, given the size, location, and what it is you're doing. The only thing, and I'll tack this on at the end, is a lot of people have mentioned it. Some have asked it as a question, and some have suggested, like, your opening times are killing you. It's like, I didn't go into this blind. I know the opening times are not brilliant, right? I would love to stay open all hours of the day, but again, I'm just one person, and you know, there's certain stuff going on in Warrington as well with competitors, which, you know, the Warhammer store in Warrington, for example, is closed on Monday, Tuesday. I'm open on Monday, Tuesday, so just in case somebody wants to come in and buy something, they can. Yesterday, Tuesday, was a very good day for me. Was that because it was closed? I don't know. But that was part of that thinking, right? The local Warhammer store closes earlier than I do, most days, or some days, I think. Or, you know, we're open later on a Thursday, that type of stuff. I would love to be open on a Sunday, but what that now gives me means I can actually go to events on Sunday and sell there, or I can do something else, social or business building, on a Sunday, because again, I'm just one person. I would love to be open 7 days a week, you know, 9 a.m. till 11 p.m. But if I did that, it would kill me, or I would have to hire someone else. And at the moment, given the business is this small and it's just me, I can't afford to hire anyone else. Do you get what I mean? So these opening times are not as bad for me and this business than you would maybe think. The good thing about being in the middle of Warrington as well, you've got other stores on the outskirts. You've got other stores in the middle of nowhere, proper destination stores that people will drive to. That's fine. You know, I'm right near a bus station and a train station. Warrington has a chunk of foot flow in it, and people going to and from work. You know, so once 3 o'clock hits, that's when we start to get people coming in, usually. And we do get people coming in the morning as well, every now and again. We've got 3 weeks worth of data to go off. Mondays are very, very, very dead. So we can start doing stuff on Mondays around that. Do you get what I mean? It's not every hour you are open needs to be 100% dedicated to customers. You can utilize those opening times to do other things, like our own work. You know, I'm potentially thinking of doing painting tutorials, or you know, getting people to come in and doing painting lessons for them, that type of thing, that could work. There's just a lot to think about, right? I would love to stay open later. Just at this moment, I can't. However, in a year's time, or in 18 months' time, if all goes well, I could potentially then have enough capital to move into a bigger unit, which I can then stock and keep them open later, and maybe even hire someone. Do you see what I mean? So, yeah, I get it. You know, I'd love to stay open till 8. There's probably 2 core hours there from 6 till 8 that I miss out on sometimes. But the thing is, if you reach out and you work with your community and people get to know you and stuff like that, those times, the community can bend ever so slightly around those times, right? So, yeah, opening times and stuff like that. Not every city, town, destination is the same. So I don't need to conform to anything. I will take advantage of what I can with the lot I've been given at this moment in time. But it was and is part of the plan, if that makes sense. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think this might be a very, very chunky video. And if you made it to the end, then, you know, thank you very much for watching. A like, a subscribe goes a long way. Ask more questions. I might do this again in the very near future, or I might start integrating a section like this into videos. Who knows? So yeah, ask away in the comments below. Visit the website. Thanks to all those who have made a purchase. The new release has been released on Patreon. Free STL files if you want to go and print them yourself. Yeah, and thanks in advance for any support and getting me over the 2,000 subscriber count. And I'm almost over the 3,000 hour watch goal. So soon we might even be able to start making ad revenue on YouTube. Thanks again to everyone so far. It really means a lot. The store is exceeding our expectations 3 weeks in. I'm having loads of fun doing these videos. I'm having loads of fun speaking to the community. I can't wait to get out and get to our local gaming clubs in the coming weeks as well, because I really want to start looking at these games and seeing how people play and interact with their models and stuff like that. That should be really special. So thanks again. Take care. Speak soon. Have fun. See you in the next one.